Comeback for Vasilev and Lukic! A banger of a strike for Jovan Lukic's first MLS goal!
It's fallen out to Westfield! Oh, wow! He's nearly taken the roof of the net off! Philadelphia pounce again!
Who gets his goal on his Union debut? The record signing! Off and running in his first appearance for the club!
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and it's kind of crazy that we are 3 days away from Christmas. We're almost into 2026, and before you know it, it's going to be the start of the 2026 season for the Philadelphia Union. Jose and I know, have talked about the Union going away to Spain starting on January 17th, if I am correct. But we had told you guys last episode that once both of these deals are official, we will go and talk about them. That is the Philadelphia Union trading two all-star caliber players in Tai Baribo and Jakob Glesnes. Baribo to DC United, Jakob Glesnes to LA Galaxy. And this is a couple months after the Philadelphia Union clinched the Supporter Shield. A lot of mixed reactions on social media. Jose and I will do our best to get both sides of this argument. But yeah, a big shift in things for the Philadelphia Union to move on from these two players. But before we get into them, Jose, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's good to get what will likely be my last show of the calendar year, based on just, life of a dad of two and trying to be a good husband. So I wanna be obviously super mindful of that. So likely my last show for the calendar year before we head into, scared to think, 2026 already. But my goodness, what a packed show, right? Despite technically not much happening since we last got together. There's so much to dissect just about these two trades that happened in pretty quick. One's technically a sale. The other one's one's a trade, one's a sale. Yeah. So it's really a whole lot to talk about on something that, just sort of happened randomly. We talk about it every single time we get together. There's always Union news, so I'm intrigued on what happens between now and after the Christmas break next week. But you'll have to do that with somebody else next week, that's for sure.
Hey, that's fine. Or we go back to doing a solo show, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, these two deals, official, Jose, and I guess we can go ahead and start with maybe the bigger surprise, and maybe that's a little bit controversial to the listeners, but I would say that the bigger surprise is trading away, or in this case, selling Tai Baribo to DC United for $4 million. The Union may acquire up to an additional $600,000 if certain performances are met with Tai down in DC. But what a roller coaster 2.5 years that Tai Baribo really endeared in Philadelphia, Jose. This is the Union's second cash for player trade this season after the Union received $250,000 from San Diego for David Vasquez. And the one thing I do want to mention quickly is, so last year this cash for player trade was first introduced. Last year, MLS said you could get two, if I'm not mistaken. Correct, Jose?
Two in and two out.
Yeah, so we don't know if that's still going to be the case for 2026 because MLS hasn't ratified the 2026 roster regulations, rules, all that jazz. But when we talk about rules and everything like that, we're basing it off of what last year was. And I'm sure we'll see a little bit of tweaks here and there, just like we always see in MLS every single season, Jose. But I wouldn't expect anything drastically. But this is the big one. This is exactly what this rule's meant for. We saw it last year with Daniel Gaza going to Columbus Crew for $4.5 million, if I'm not mistaken, Jose. $4 million. I think it was $4.5 million that Gaza went to Columbus Crew. Somebody in the comment section can correct me. But now we see, yet again, another big move for the Philadelphia Union, moving a huge piece. We also saw Jack McGlynn moving that cash for player sale to Houston Dynamo for $1.2 million. I don't exactly remember that total last year, but again, we'll dive into Baribo's stats, his starts, all that stuff with the Philadelphia Union. But this is a great rule, Jose. And I can remember when MLS announced it last year, you and I said this is going to be key for MLS. For MLS obviously wanting to keep top talent in the league. Now they've kind of created a transfer market within the league, which is not a bad thing. And I don't think it's a bad thing either when MLS teams sell players to Europe. But allowing this cash for player sale, it helps MLS teams be a little bit more competitive where, okay, maybe the teams are going to value actual money over GAM, and $4 million guaranteed for the Philadelphia Union to Tai Baribo. That's a significant amount of money that the Union are receiving for a player who had a year left on his contract after getting his option picked up for 2026.
Yeah, very much so, right? And to even back up, man, like this is an interesting one. And and just looking up some other cash for transfer, call them cash furs, if you will. The turbulent tale that was Luciano Acosta, who went from Cincinnati to Dallas for $5 million, was then sold to Fluminense out in Brazil for $4 million. So that's two massive trades between those clubs in very quick succession. So we'll see if Tai Baribo outlasts the 6 months that Luciano Acosta had in FC Dallas. But just a massive deal for someone who had an incredibly hot start, right? I feel like all of the headlines were on Tai Baribo earlier in the 2025 season, right? He had that incredible start against Orlando City, if I recall, to open the season, and then immediately scoring some more. But then, unfortunately, went sort of silent for a while, and I think it all sort of, I don't know. I'm tracing back the timeline in my mind. But when he went on international break and stayed in Israel to finish his green card and then was stuck there. And it was partly injury, I believe, partly stuck in a war, however you feel about it, stuck there. And then once it came back, it just sort of never picked back up. If I again, I'm just recalling, I don't have his stats in front of me. But a player who went pretty quiet towards the later stages of the season. So $4 million, potentially $4.6 million for a player like that, not a bad haul, especially for somebody who next year at the 6 months mark could be negotiating his own deal out, right? So I commend the Union in a way for being able to get something out of it, out of the whole situation, considering what I had heard behind the scenes that he was requesting for salary. And, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but sort of working backwards onto what is likely his salary at DC United for someone his age at 27. And by the time he's done 32 on this 5-year deal, 4.5-year deal, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I don't know that I would want to be paying that much for him.
Yeah, sure. We can go ahead and talk about it right now if you want, and then we'll go ahead and backtrack and talk about the expectations for Tai Baribo when they bought him in the summer of 2023. But yeah, DC United come out and announce a 5-year DP deal for Tai Baribo. I don't think it was any secret that Tai Baribo was looking for that DP deal. And when you look at the Philadelphia Union, you had Mikel Uhre as a DP. You had Bruno Damiani as a young DP. Obviously, Uhre was out of contract for 2026. Damiani would then leave that young DP spot and then take up just a regular DP spot. Not that it's a massive deal. It's just a little bit of a different salary hit. But would the Union have been comfortable? Let's say the Union give Baribo a new deal last year and half the season. Would the Union have been comfortable having 3 DPs all on the strikers, all on the forwards? I don't know. For half a season, maybe it doesn't make that much of a difference knowing that you have Mikel Uhre out of contract after the season. But, and maybe this is why I'm not working in an MLS front office. Maybe this is why, I'm not in that brain trust sort of business. But I think if I'm a GM, right, Jose, and I don't want to speak for you, but I think I would look at 1 or 2 spots filled up in DPs in the midfield, 1 to 2 spots up top. I would not go 3 in one spot. Maybe split it down the line. 1 DP striker, 1 DP midfielder, and 1 DP defender. And, I see jokes all the time. Walker Zimmerman got a lot of hate for Nashville making him a DP. But this league gets a lot of hate from MLS fans saying, oh, the defending could be better. And there is no secret that it's an attack-heavy league. And we had talked about the South African that Chicago Fire wound up signing, how this is a good deal for him coming over as a U22 defender, playing against high-level attackers. It can only help defenders playing against teams that score a lot, a league that scores a lot of goals. Same with Makanya. But Walker Zimmerman, for whatever reason, got a lot of hate because, Nashville decided to make him a DP defender. And people are like, oh, what are you doing making a defender a DP? But at the same time, I do think that maybe teams should invest a little bit more heavily on defense. And I don't want to jump ahead about Jakob Glesnes, but he was in the top 10 highest paid center backs. But you typically see just MLS teams spending more money, high money on attacking pieces. And so, yeah, I think if you're a DP, you probably want to go either 2 in the midfield or 2 up top. No way you're spending 3 DP spots on 1 position group.
No, not especially on a team that rotates as heavily as the Union does, right? I mean, what was the figure, Todd? I know the Union were flaunting it in a way, the number of different 29 different starting lineups. So, yeah, and listen, I don't recall Mikel Ua's initial deal was what, 3 or 4 years?
4, I want to say.
4 years, okay, 3, whatever it is, 3 or 4. Right now he's 31, so he either started at the Union when he was 27 or he started at the Union when he was 28, I guess. So all that to say that, he basically got the Tai Baribo deal when he first started at the Union, right? A designated player at that age, the way that Baribo's 27. And, for Baribo, DC was the team who was willing to take that chance on him. Not to say that Mikel Ua hasn't been successful, not to say that Mikel Ua hasn't accomplished a lot with the Union, just to say that different teams are going to have different feelings about having a player once they finish that deal. Like, listen, Tai Baribo is going to be, should he finish the entire deal, be 32, maybe 33, depending on when his birthday actually lands, if I'm doing the math correctly. And based on, behind the scenes stuff that I hear from sources, that he was asking closer to $2.5 million or more on a yearly basis on 5.5 years. That's a lot of money to commit on one player specifically. So based on just some rough math from the DC United press release, which they kind of snuck this part in there, quote, the total transaction value of the trade, including player compensation, exceeds $15 million for DC United, a clear investment in the club's future success, end quote. So with that said, we take that $15 million figure and subtract, just because you have to, I think, the 4.6 that the whole deal could be valued at, and you end up with $10.4 million. Again, it's not perfect, but you take that 10.4 and you divide it over 4 or 5 years, depending on how you see that half season. DC United might see it as a whole year. I don't. And I'm referring to the sprint season, or that very tight 14-game season plus playoff. That is the link between the way that the league is run this year and the way that the calendar is going to flip to be in the European model. So you take the 10.4, you divide it, and you're ending up at 2.6 or 2 point a little bit lower than that. So Tai Baribo went from making a guaranteed $810,000 to potentially making $2.6 million, which, after a little percentage calculator help, because I am not savvy enough with a calculator to come up with this, he got himself a 220% raise. So what player is not going to chase that bag? I don't fault the guy for wanting to chase that bag. I just wonder for him, how happy is DC going to be on this deal in 3 to 4 years, right? Is this deal even going to be something that they have to worry about in 3 to 4 years, right? Are they going to ship them out somewhere else, et cetera? So it's really interesting. And I commend Tai and his agent for finding somebody that wanted to give him that money. That you cannot deny. I guess I also commend the union for, putting their shoulder into the way that they run the operation, meaning that, and this might, ruffle feathers among some in the fan base, I guess, but just really putting their shoulder into not wanting to update the wage structure. And sure, you could argue there's a 16, 17-year-old that's making more money than most players above his age and Kevin Sullivan, but that's a complete anomaly. You're not going to have Tai Baribo making that type of money going into the 30s again. The union are looking to get younger and looking to honestly get cheaper. So I don't know, man. I don't know. So Tai Baribo, congrats to him, I suppose. So, we'll see. I mean, they opened the season against Philadelphia at DC United, so it'll be pretty quick to see what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing for preseason. I don't think DC United has announced it. I know they're not going to Coachella, the tournament in California. I don't think that they're one of the teams that goes to that, but it's certainly someone to follow along, right? As he continues to be part of the league, the way that, we all keep an eye on Jack McGlynn and Daniel Gastag and even from afar, which, I'll get to it now, but like, congratulations, Jose Martinez, on another trophy and 1.5 years out in Brazil. So, not sure if there's anything else you want to add about the deal that maybe I missed, or topics that you want to touch base on regarding it.
Yeah. I think there's a lot we can go ahead and talk about in terms of Tai, but I mentioned it coming to the union in August 2023. I think there was a lot of excitement around the fan base saying, oh, this is the player that we need to help us make a push in the playoffs. Obviously, the union decided to run it back after the 2022 MLS Cup final loss to LAFC. You still had Mikael Uhre, you had Daniel Gazdag, you had Julian Kranza. That was your front three. And when you look at it, it's not the worst thing in the world because of how successful that front three was in 2022. I think it was 48, 49 goals whose three guys scored amongst each other in 2022. But the thing was, can the union get a difference maker, a player coming off the bench, like we saw with LAFC and Gareth Bale? The union go out in August and bring in Tai Baribo, and Tai Baribo was lighting the world on fire in Austria. The union, I believe, paid $1.5 million to get Tai here. But my goodness, Jose, he absolutely failed to break into then manager Jim Curtin's starting 11. Only made 6 appearances across all competitions in 2023. Did not make a single appearance in the playoffs that season. Made 1 start against Charlotte. A total of 152 minutes. Curtin in 2024, the union run it back yet again. Julian Kranza in less than 6 months. Yeah, less than 6 months. His contract was going to be out. Winds up leaving, obviously, in the summertime to go to Feyenoord in the Dutch league. But Jim Curtin continues to go with Mikael Uhre and Julian Kranza up front to start 2024. Tai Baribo, essentially 3-4 months. He's not playing that many games. Only makes 4 appearances from February 20th to June 15th across all competitions. Don't forget, the union were in CONCACAF Champions Cup in 2024. Total just 23 minutes, Jose, in the first 4 months in 2024. 23 minutes. I mean, that tells you just how difficult life was for Tai Baribo. You hear talk behind the scenes that Baribo isn't living up to expectations in training, isn't training as hard as that he potentially could. And you hear all these reasons why he's not breaking into the starting lineup, why he's not getting into the match day squad coming off the bench. But regardless, Baribo is not playing. Barely plays at all in 2023 when maybe the union could have used him in the playoffs. Obviously, they lose to FC Cincinnati on a controversial call. Could Baribo come off the bench and got a goal? Potentially. Then 2024 comes and you only play limited minutes. You play so little minutes, 23 minutes in all competitions. The union, the first 17 games, 4-5-8 in MLS. Kranza has an ankle injury, if I'm not mistaken, and then obviously eventually gets sold to Feyenoord. And now what does Curtin do? He has no other choice but to play Tai Baribo. Baribo makes his first start in MLS in 2024, scores a brace against Cincinnati. Union go on and lose that game 4-3. And this is the game I think a lot of people are going to remember with Quinn Sullivan and Marcus Anderson. Marcus Anderson gets cashed into Jim Curtin's doghouse, never seen from ever again, gives away the ball poorly. That leads to Acosta's goal to make it 4-3 Cincinnati. Quinn Sullivan potentially had a chance in that game to go ahead and put the Union up 4-3, but what a disaster of a game. But the headlines from that game was Tai Baribo's first start, scores a brace against Cincinnati. But the biggest story I would say for Baribo in 2024, obviously the Union missed the playoffs. But the biggest story was 16 goals in 22 games across all competitions for Tai Baribo in 2024. 16 goals, 22 starts. Really fantastic numbers. He wins the Golden Boot in the League's Cups, has 7 goals. Union lose the third place game against Colorado Rapids. I don't know if you remember that game too much, Jose. Baribo scores a brace, and then it goes to penalties. Him and Gazag both get the penalty saved. Crazy. You score a brace, penalty, you think it's going to be easier. Zach Steffen steps up and saves Daniel Gazag, who's pretty much automatic from the penalty spot. Baribo steps up after scoring a brace, gets his penalty saved. Unbelievable scenes. Union go and lose that third place game, which is why they don't qualify for the Champions Cup in 2025. Maybe, to your point, Jose, maybe that's why Baribo got off to a hot start. The Union don't have to focus. They don't have to worry about CONCACAF Champions Cup. Straight into MLS play. Baribo comes out, scores yet again another brace. 6 goals in the first 3 games of the season. And yeah, I mean, just unbelievable performance from Tai Baribo in the first half of the season for the Union. 13 goals he scored. But then after that, he absolutely just disappeared. And I think that's putting it kindly. And it's the worst possible time that you want to disappear too, when you're in a contract year. Yes, what you did at the beginning of the season, phenomenal. But then when your team needs goals, when you need players to step up, and granted, Union had 18 other different goal scorers. They were finding other players to score goals when Baribo wasn't scoring. So it wasn't like they were missing it too much. But still, you would want to see Baribo score more than 3 goals in the last 17 games of the regular season.
You have to wonder, and thank you for that entire recap. I think Val's comment is so on point, right? That Pierre Tai's Union career was very puzzling, which it absolutely was, right? That early, you mentioned 6 starts that one year. Let's call it 5, because the one was 20 seconds.
Yeah, 6 appearances, yeah.
Appearances, sorry. So let's call it 5, because one of them was a 20-second run to the corner and maybe get a touch. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm happy for the guy that he found someone to give him the money that he wanted. He remains in the United States. He doesn't have to go too far, maybe to a city that he's more interested in living in the DC area somewhere. I don't know where he'll end up. But it's interesting that had he scored maybe 3 or 4 goals in the period between when he went really in the period where he went really cold there at the end, I think we're talking about a potentially like $5.5 million transfer, because then you show some more continuity in terms of the way that he can score and score when it matters. Maybe 2 goals, 3 goals, and then 1 or 2 in the playoffs. Like, we're maybe a completely different deal here altogether. But I just don't see a world where the Union again want to upset the wage structure that they have with a lot of their players. And I would argue that there are technically a lot of contracts that the Union have right now that maybe I don't want to say regret, but maybe they wish they could reconsider. And I think maybe this is a segue to the next player, but maybe there is some aging legs that need to be moved. And that part of the deal was, and this is something I want to talk to somebody behind the scenes, is, do you make deals that sweeten the pot later in the stages of the deal, fully intending to move them on, right? Trying to find a partner to take on that end of the contract, because you from the get-go knew that you were never really interested in paying that type of money, even if he got there. But obviously that's maybe more nefarious, and you're looking into bad actors when making deals. But all I think interesting to find out and ask about. So I don't know if this wraps it up, Todd, but I'm intrigued to see how Tai does. I'm intrigued to see if he lives up to the money that he's being paid, because now the weight is on his shoulders, right? And he's got a lot to prove, I think, with this type of money. Certainly in a team that's rebuilding. They just got Sean Nealis from New York Red Bull as well for 800 some. Was it Gam Tam or was it Cash? I think it was Gam. Gam. So they got a defender for funny money, and I know that they're doing likely some more shuffling around of players here in DC United. Long are the years of Jaime Moreno and Marco Echeverri out there. So, and Aleko Eskandarian too. So like they have a lot of work to do out there. I just, maybe that's a group. There was one thing he did say, and I know the press conference that not the reveal, the presentation, I think is the right term. The player presentation, Tai gave some quotes that I was able to kind of piece together from different people who were in the audience, taping and sharing. But Tai sort of alluded to, this is a club that's investing in players, investing in a winning team, and ownership's behind it. So I don't know, maybe I took that as a shot at the Union ownership. I could maybe be looking into it too much. Don't quote me into it. I have to rewatch that quote. But if he's happy with the money and the team structure that he's going into at that club, then so be it. I hope he thrives, and I hope that he does well. Just he doesn't end up winning everything, right? So we'll see.
So there actually is something I want to touch on, and then we can talk about Glesnes. But Hoagie says Tai is guys like 2.0, and I think this is such an interesting comment, because when I look at Tai Baribo, somebody in the comment section, if you can find this real quick, how many times did Kai and Tai combine last year? I want to say 6 or 7 goals that Kai assisted Tai on last year. Across all competitions is fine if you guys can find that, or just MLS, whatever. But it was quite a few times. And that leads me to think, how much was it the Union system compared to Tai Baribo himself? Because let's face it, Jose, to Hoagie's point, Gazdag was really underwhelming in his first, we can't even say a full season with Columbus, since he had some time spent in Philadelphia prior to going to Columbus. But it was pretty underwhelming. Julian Kranza, and I love Kranza a lot, and don't get me wrong, going from MLS to the Dutch league, it's a step up. It's a pretty big step up. It's not like you're going from La Liga or to Serie A like Tati Castellanos, but still, you're leaving MLS to go to a top team in the Netherlands. And what does he do with Feyenoord? Not much. Goes out on loan to Leicester. Still can't get a goal. Can't even get into the starting lineup. Maybe it is something, Jose, about these players looking a lot better than what they actually are because of the Union system. The Union system bringing the best out in these players. And maybe this is a little bit of a stretch too, but what did Corey Burke do once he left Philadelphia, went to New York Red Bulls, and then went to Lexington? Where did the goals go at those two clubs? I get it. He wasn't a top goal scorer with the Union, but I feel like he was scoring more with the Union than he was at Red Bulls in Lexington. So I'll be curious to see what Baribo does in his first season with DC United. Yes, he's obviously a proven goal scorer. Disappeared in the second half of the season for the Union. But how much is this? The Union system making these players look a lot better than they are.
Yeah, and this is a system. You're right, and to your question about the Kai and Tai connection, which of course led to that really silly marketing campaign for the drinks, whatever. Kai even made a joke about it, I think, on social media once the announcement went public of the move, of like, thank you for the gajillion assists, brother. It was, it's goofy. There's something to your point there. but I do agree with you. I think that there is something about the system, right? You're looking at a system that advances the ball forward as fast as possible, gets it into dangerous spots, and serves the ball as quick as possible, and puts the defenders and the players. Sorry, I just got a note. Okay, my iPad's acting weird, I guess, on the side. Um, Puts defenders on their heels, right? Of trying to defend very, very quickly after turning the ball over, or pissing it away in the middle of the field. So it's a system that does help thrive. And dude, I would love to see a Julian Carranza under the Cornell system versus the Jim system of the, getting the ball up as fast as possible, because I think Carranza would be easily a double-digit scorer under this system and whatever. So yeah, I bid him luck, and I hope that he gets the tools to score. I just don't know that DC United has the tools to get him the service that he requires, because there's no denying that he's incredible inside the six. I just don't know that he can create his own goals, if that makes sense, the way that Damiani can, interestingly enough, against DC United by muscling three players and then ultimately having some shots from outside the box himself. So I don't know how this is going to shake out, but it'll be interesting to watch from afar, or not too far, I guess. We're just right up 95.
Yeah, exactly. But then, if MLS goes to these new divisions, then
Yeah.
you're only going to see DC United once, potentially, which is crazy that teams so close playing them only once a season. Crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. But let's go ahead and flip from attack to defense. The Philadelphia Union also announced that they had acquired a guaranteed $1.1 million in general allocation money, GAM, from LA Galaxy in exchange for Jakob Glesnes and the homegrown priority rights of Union Homegrown for Jamir Johnson. And before we talk about Glesnes, let's go ahead and talk about, I think, the part that got a little bit snuck in here, Jamir Johnson. Obviously, very, very talented player. Went away to the U17 World Cups with Kellen LeBlanc, Jordan Griffin, and Kevin Sullivan. But a little bit similar to Quinn Sullivan, where he came up through the academy as a winger. Quinn's way too talented to not sign. So the Union signed him regardless of not having a winger role in the first team. And you're in a little bit of a similar situation with Jamir Johnson. Obviously, the Union, I'm sure, probably had a pretty clear indication that they weren't going to be able to sign Jamir Johnson, that he wasn't interested in signing with the Union. And so you go ahead and sell the rights to LA Galaxy, and LA Galaxy can go ahead and try to take a stab at it and see if they can sign him to a homegrown deal and get him to commit to MLS for a couple seasons. But the thing with Jamir is, I feel like the last couple seasons, we've seen him posting on social media, having training stints at PSV in the Netherlands. And I think it's pretty clear that he has aspirations to go to Europe, and maybe LA Galaxy can't even get a deal done. And so, yes, I get this is a pretty significant loss, losing a very talented player in the academy, but let's face it, if players have dreams and aspirations to go ahead and play in Europe and have no interest whatsoever signing with your club, playing in MLS, playing with Union 2 and MLS Next Pro, you can't force these guys to sign contracts. And so the Union go ahead and include Jamir in this deal. They get a sell-on clause if LA Galaxy do eventually sell him, if they are able to sign him to a deal. But when I saw this, Jose, is it wrong of me to feel like, yeah, this doesn't, like, again, he's a talented player, don't get me wrong, repeating myself for the fifth time. But to me, like, I just didn't think Jamir Johnson was ever going to sign in Philadelphia, just because it didn't seem like he really had a spot on the first team.
I mean, based on everything I kept on hearing, I had thought that there was never really an opportunity for him to want to sign with the Union. And I don't know if that maybe, again, I don't know enough about the player, but what I will probably infer a little bit is, and maybe this is me putting, things together that shouldn't be together, but I don't know if his, say, not being interested in signing led to him not really playing for Union 2, right? Because why would they? Okay, there you go. Why would the Union 2 go on and give him the opportunity with Union 2 if he's not willing to sign a contract, right? Again, I don't know if that's the way they operated on it. I'm not saying that is, but he was a player that really did not get much game time. I don't know, and I think this is where you start getting into the pipeline of players from academy to Union 2 to the first team, maybe starting to get a little bogged down, right? Maybe this is where you start thinking, all right, well, there's really no opportunity for this player. We got to figure out and do right by the player. Here, Jamir gets an opportunity to go to LA, maybe gets a homegrown deal of some sort worked out with LA, fully knowing that it's temporary and a short type of thing because he has bigger aspirations. My goodness, every time that I would follow what he was doing at PSV, he was assisting or scoring left and right in all of these different invitationals during the offseason. So he was doing well. He was doing the right things that he needed to do. I just don't know that the system that Philadelphia plays really made sense for them to have a winger the way that Jamir plays. So I wish him well. This part of the deal took me by surprise, but in the sense of like, oh, I did not hear about that part, but obviously heard about everything else that dealt with Glesnes. So it is what it is. He's a prospect that don't feel bad for him or Glesnes or Baribo. They're either swimming on money, getting a new opportunity, or living in sunny California. So like they'll be totally fine.
That's very true. I mean, you go from East Coast weather, growing up in Norway, to now going to pretty much sunshine year round in LA. And I would imagine Glesnes still, I mean, LA Galaxy are picking up his contract that he had in Philadelphia. So I would imagine not much changes from the $1.3 million that he was making last year. He'll be fine. He can't afford to live out in LA. That is for sure. But yeah, looking at Jakob Glesnes, Jose, I mean, $1.1 million guaranteed in game, have the potential to go ahead and see that money turn into a total of $2.2 million if all these incentives are hit. Union get 600,000 in 2027 GAM, 500,000 in 2026 GAM. And again, I don't know. There's so many times on this podcast where I talk about this is great. The Union are just collecting GAM, and you want to have a good war chest of GAM available, and you want to collect as much as you can because you can go out and acquire more players and spread that amongst your roster, buy players down, etc. And people are like, oh, I don't want to hear this, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, it's a business. It is a business. And I see the comment here from Shaggy says, this was in regards to Jamir. I don't think he was interested in a small market team. And again, people always focus on the Union being in the bottom 5 of the lowest spending teams in MLS. And so, okay, yeah, of course they're going to look to make a profit. Not saying that all teams aren't looking at a profit, but maybe the Union are looking at it a little bit more heavily than other teams would. But still, when you have a front office like the Philadelphia Union that obviously have an eye for talent, know how to spread their TAM availability around, buying players' contracts down so that they have players that theoretically, look, I'll say it, I think Kai Wagner is a DP level player, but he's a TAM player. He's on a TAM deal because the Union are good at navigating the salary cap. You can make a case that Tai Baribo probably should have been a DP player, but again, they manipulate the cap. They work around the cap, and manipulating the cap maybe is the wrong term because this isn't Inter Miami. But the Union have enough GAM available where they can go ahead and buy down these players that should theoretically be DP players, but now they're high-level TAM guys. And so, yeah, this is fantastic to see the Union once again collecting GAM and making sure that they don't enter a situation where they have a low amount of GAM, because you and I talked about it, right, Jose? What's stopping the Philadelphia Union from going out? I know they have a few open international roster slots, but let's say they want to go past the 8 that you start with. Well, you have enough GAM where you can go out and get 9 or 10, like we see Inter Miami do every single season. And so you want to make sure you're set financially in the best possible way, and that's exactly what this Glesnes deal gives you.
Right. Yeah. And to your point on the international sides, I just laugh a little bit because, Inter Miami has like 13 or 14. Here, the Union end up either just
It was 5 last year, I think.
Yeah, keeping them for funsies and even get some back because Oliver Semla's not coming back, and more and more players are getting their international stuff. I'm not saying that I don't think that that's happening right now, but surprises pop up. Or oh, Jesus Bueno got his. It's like what?
Yeah, I was shocked by that last year.
What was your question again on Glesnes there at the end?
Yeah, it's just good business.
Yeah,
bring in more GAM where you can spread that around and buy players down.
Yeah, and I think this is once again, and I know the sentiment's not shared by a lot of people, and I think that's totally fine, where this is a situation of how many years did Glesnes have left on his deal? 2?
Well, he had just signed a new contract extension.
Yeah, so he had
through
he have
2027 and then option for 28.
So and he wasn't going to be making less money towards the tail end of that. So his deal was only going to get bigger and bigger. And he's currently on $1.3 million. So do you really want to be paying a center back at that age that much money? And sure, there is evidence. And I think Glesnes is a perfect example of someone who had a rebound year, did so well in all the metrics, et cetera, that there is a way for some of these older center backs. I mean, look no further than even LA Galaxy. I know it's a bit of an anomaly, but even their Japanese center back, who's older, of course, former Japan international, had a pretty okay year, but obviously won the league with LA Galaxy on that year 2 years ago. Yoshida, I think is his last name, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. You're right. Yep.
So although there's evidence that could be another great year for Glesnes, I don't know. I don't know that you can bank on him having another all-star year going into 2026 with more games this year than even the year prior, right? Where now they're having to compete not just in the league and U.S. Open, meaning too, obviously the Union are not competing in U.S. Open this year, but they're adding Leagues Cup, which is going to be this month-long monster, and CONCACAF Champions Cup, which obviously takes a toll too. So I don't know what else to say other than it's probably not a bad time to cash in on someone like him, because you're probably not going to get a higher value for him at that age and at the performance that he had. So he'll be okay. He's going to make good money. And I wonder if not only is LA picking up the deal as is, but maybe they work out to add an additional year or something along those lines for someone like Glesnes. Maybe that's part of the whole agreement with him, to bring him in and have him be sort of this transition piece where they are technically, Ricky Puig is coming back and Marco Royce is there. So they have a pretty good lineup. I think 2025 was not a good year. And may I remind a lot of people who probably listen and watch, 2024, people were trying to run Glesnes out of town so quickly that 2025 was a rebound year, but my goodness, I think there's some selective memory on what 2024 was all about behind Glesnes from the fan base. So we'll see, man. Again, another deal that I'm intrigued to see how it shakes out, and I'll be watching and following along.
Yeah, and I think with Glesnes, I mean, obviously he's 31 years old. He'll be 32 during the season. Appeared 224 times with the Union, 218 starts, scored 10 goals, 8 assists, and almost 2,000 minutes played across all competitions. Glesnes finishes as the 6th most appearances in Philadelphia Union history with 224. And this is a player, Jose, that I think you obviously are losing leadership. You're losing consistency. You're losing, I don't want to say the face of the turnaround for the Union, but he actually might be the face, Jose, because the Union obviously make the playoffs in 2019, and I think maybe fans would want to say an attacking player is more so the face of the franchise, but a guy who was brought in 2020, and you are new to a country, new to a league. You go through the MLS's next back because the world shuts down because of COVID. I mean, that had to be so difficult for Jakob Glesnes coming to a new team, a new league, a new country. You're away from your family because you're sent away in this bubble down in Disney World, and you're just sitting in a hotel room where you don't know your teammates. And so what do you do? How do you build team chemistry? And to his credit, we see him have phenomenal performances in 2020. And yes, he was the defender of the year in 2022. He's a multiple-time All-Star, I think 3-time All-Star appearances for Glesnes. He was nominated for Defender of the Year this season as well as 2022, where he won it. And so he has experience of being a successful center back. But losing a player, like I said, that in my mind is the face of that turnaround. Defensively, for sure, for the Union, but we see what the team does in 2019, and 2020 comes in, and Ernst Tanner shakes up the roster massively in 2020. You bring in Jose Martinez that year too, and let's not forget, Jose Martinez wasn't even supposed to be the guy. It was Matej Orvic's sexy season. That was supposed to be the guy. And Jose Martinez has this debut game against LAFC, face all bloody and everything. And this is a guy who is a cult hero in this fan base. But him and Jakob Glesnes are huge pieces. And Union 8 says it right here, in his opinion, Jose Martinez was more so the face of the turnaround than Jakob Glesnes.
A little bias on his picture, may I add?
I didn't even notice that. I didn't even notice that.
A little biased.
Good call. Yes. For people who don't watch these live streams, it's a picture of Jose Martinez giving the middle finger, I believe, or double birds to New York City supporters. I believe that was.
Yes.
Legendary picture. But yeah, you have these guys that really institute what this team wants to be: hardworking defensively. Let's get the defense right first. And LA Galaxy, 66 goals they conceded last year, and they need to shore up that defense. And Yoshida feels like he's been around playing forever, 35, 36-year-old center back. And yes, defenders can play well into their late 30s, but you do eventually think that a fall-off is going to come. And that's exactly what we saw in 2024 with Glesnes. Obviously, he gets hurt towards the end of the 2023 season with the hernia. 2024 was never right, but he looked god-awful. And to your point, Jose, I think there was not a single person in 2024 that said, why are we bringing Glesnes back? You got to get rid of Glesnes. But yet, he was making too much money. Jose, let's face it, $1.2 million before we signed this new deal. Nobody wanted that salary. If somebody would have wanted that salary, it would have had to been the Union eating some of it. And the Union weren't going to get rid of a player and pay half of his salary or whatever the case may be. The Union banked on, okay, let's see a new coach. Let's see if he can rebound. And that's exactly what he did. Up again for Defender of the Year. And so you're selling Glesnes, in my opinion, at his max value, his highest value that it has been in some time. It helps that he signs that new contract. That increases the value a little bit because you're buying a player that has multiple years committed into them. But he's coming off of a strong season. And so from a business perspective, this is the best time to go ahead and sell Jakob Glesnes. I fully respect what Jacob's done for this franchise. But $1.2 million or $1.1 million, in GAM for a player that's going to be 32 years old that showed injury history in 2023 and 2024. Can he replicate again what he did in 2025? I don't know. And we talked about it, Jose. How much is it? The Union system compared to these players being as good as they looked. it's going to be telling, I think, in 2026 for Jakob Glesnes.
Yeah, that's another make or break year for him, right? Into what LA wants to do. And I almost wonder if the deal is actually very similar to Elliott. Obviously, Elliott was more of a free agent, of course, versus being a guy who gets traded. This is what I meant by a trade versus a sale. Where Elliott had to prove it, right, and earn himself the pickup of the option, et cetera, versus Jakob having to having a deal to navigate through. So I get it from the fan base. This is a guy who put in 224 appearances, and you combine that with Baribo's 67, you're looking at 291 combined appearances for the club that disappear this quickly. But you could argue that the Union have gone through this, right, when they moved on from Gastag and McGlynn, never mind Elliott and Flock, etc. So they're not against shaking it up as of late. Never mind, again, like letting some top prospects go into loans, like CJ Olney, for example. Like this is a very different Union than even from 3 years ago. So I respect the choice to want to sell him. I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision, but a difficult one, I should say. Forgive me. But Jakob gets to be in sunny California playing with new teammates. So again, I think he will be okay. And he's served his purpose, right? He transitioned the club from what it used to be to its probably peak over the last 5-6 years to now even transitioning and teaching the likes of Neil Pierre, as well as obviously Olwethu Makanya. So he's done his part, and it's time for him to go on and have a different challenge, right? And I think he'll be good in the Western Conference as it is right now. So eager to watch him. I know he will be at Coachella, whatever, out with LA Galaxy. I think that they are participating. San Diego dropped out. I know that's the one team that dropped out. I don't think LA did. But I think both of these moves, and I think you changed the Chiron down there. I think tell you that this team's trying to get younger and trying to find different pieces for a different look. So I'll turn it over to you to see how you want to go about this topic before we kind of exit here as we approach the hour mark, which is amazing that we go for this long. It always shocks me.
Yeah, so I brought that up because Caleb says on Twitter, secondly, are you guys comfortable with Philly remaining as a sell organization? And Jose and I have been saying for weeks on this podcast, it's not just a Union thing. What team, what league isn't a selling league? You see it all throughout MLS that teams sell. And so it's not just a Union specific thing that they're going to go ahead and sell players, whether it be a McGlynn, a Gonzaga, a Glesnes, and a Baribo now. You see it all over the world. It's a business. And so I understand why this fan base is upset when you sell your favorite players. You sell players that have been here for multiple seasons. And yet I'm still amazed, Jose, that Kai Wagner still is a Philadelphia Union player, that he's been here as long as he has. And yeah, there may be multiple reasons for that, but he's a guy who I thought would be gone before Jakob Glesnes or Tai Baribo, and yet he's still with the organization. And the Union will definitely go ahead and take advantage of one of, if not the best left back in the league, still being here. But this isn't a Union specific thing. And so the Union are going to get younger. I think that's obvious with Martinez, who hasn't officially been announced by the club. 22-year-old defender from Colombia. I would imagine you've got to go out and get another center back. Yeah, you can play Nathan Harriel as that emergency center back, which we've seen the last couple seasons, and that's also a good topic. Are the Union in discussions with Nathan Harriel over a long-term contract extension? Has an option for 2027, but you would imagine you want to lock down a young homegrown player, especially a player that we saw this year can also play as a number 10 in Bradley Cornell's system, as Frankie Westfield can as well. And so I would imagine versatility goes a long way in Bradley Cornell's system in this team. But even that, even knowing that you have a Neil Pierre up-and-coming player who I would imagine probably should play more minutes, more meaningful minutes this year with the Union. Macania is obviously going to be a big piece. Martinez, I would imagine, slips into that starting 11 now. But even if it's just those three natural center backs, Pierre, Martinez, and Macania, you have Harriel. I still feel like this team needs another center back, Jose. I feel like they probably still need another forward, especially if you don't bring back Mikael Uhre. I think Shaggy had mentioned, have you guys talked about Uhre? We're talking about Uhre now. We didn't at the beginning of the show. If you bring back Uhre, then you probably don't need another striker. But as things stand, yeah, you definitely need another striker. And I would argue you need another attacking midfielder with Quinn missing half of the season with that ACL injury. Yes, I know you have Milan. I know Bradley Cornell talked about the hope is, the plan is for Kevin Sullivan to play more minutes this season. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. He's still only 16 years old. I would like to see a little bit of an older player, a more experienced player come in here. Nothing against Kevin Sullivan, but let's face it, right? Bradley Cornell's job is to, yes, develop players, but it's also to win games. When you're in multiple competitions next season, CONCACAF Champions Cup, obviously the league, it was also announced the Union will be participating in Leagues Cup once again, starting in August, right after the World Cup break, if I'm not mistaken, right, Jose? And then lasting into the first week of September. Yeah, you've got some work to still do if you're the Philadelphia Union.
Yeah, and I don't have much else to add. I do believe that, yes, Martinez is likely coming. I haven't checked in, but last I had heard is that it was all but announced, done but announced. And again, that's just from sources. Obviously, we'll wait for the club to do what they got to do. But they certainly probably need a center back, probably, like you said, an attacking midfielder until Quinn comes back, and Alado and Damiani sort of leading the charge. But who is the number 3, right? Who is part of that trident there? Obviously, you want to have the attacking mid be involved, or someone with an attacking minded midfielder. But I'm sure that there's conversations happening on Uhre. I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if he would be willing to sign a 1-year deal. Obviously, the Union did not maybe want to give it to him at the time, or at least I'm inferring that maybe they didn't want to give it to him at the time. I don't know that a 1-year deal makes sense for someone like him. I think if you're Mikael Uhre, you're looking for some sort of
stability,
job security. Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of teams in the league that would give him close to what he's making now, if not significantly more than Philadelphia would be willing to give him, just to be, again, a transition forward for the next batch of players on a 2 to 3 year deal, right? 2 guaranteed, maybe a 1-year option, because at that point he's 33, 34, and even that feels a little long in the tooth. And who are we to rule out maybe him wanting to go back home and be with Bromby should they need him? I don't know what their club situation in terms of players, but maybe he wants to go back to Europe and be playing there in some way, shape, or form. So I don't know, man. I would guess that the club probably wants to get a lot of this done and bring players in for preseason, but it does feel like a lot. But I will never second guess how quickly this club can get things done, or how far along things are. Moves that are happening now that will be announced right before preseason, which of course, like, I think Martinez is one of them. That could be, I don't know. I'm thinking of the PR angle. They wanted to get done with the departure of these two, let the holiday break, clear the air, and then they come back with positive news of signing a player or two. So we'll see, man. Lots to get done on the business side, and that's where I think a lot of this is going to get very excited very quickly here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, for sure. I fully expect there to be a lot more business done by the club. I would imagine that they would want to have a majority of their business done before the team heads off to Spain, because you would want to have your full team present in training sessions preparing for CONCACAF Champions Cup. And so I would imagine the Union are probably going to go ahead and try to get as much business done as quick as possible. I'm hopeful that we see at least one deal announced officially before the end of the season. Whether that be Martinez, something else. I guess Martinez would probably be the most likely, since you reported, Jose, the reports came out of South America, but we're just waiting for the official announcement with the club. But yeah, I don't think it's time for Union fans to panic. I'll go ahead and address this quickly from Union Nate, assuming that he's still on here. He says, any update on the status of Ernst Tanner? None whatsoever. Zero. I think the Union, for legal purposes, are going to keep it as tight, as quiet as possible. And in the same with MLS. So as disheartening as it is for Union fans, maybe for fans that are upset with this investigation for a second time, taking as long as it's taken, I think it's now been a little bit over a month since MLS announced that they were reopening up this investigation. When you have all those allegations that were as serious as they were against Ernst Tanner, you want to take your time with them. But I do understand the fans' frustration. They want clarity on the situation, just like I'm sure the club want clarity on the situation, on their boss. So we'll go ahead and see what comes of that investigation, but no update whatsoever that either one of us have heard, because things like that are going to be extremely tight-lipped, kind of like the whole Bruce Arena situation a couple years ago in New England, right? Where still can't really find out exactly what was said or what caused Bruce Arena to be out of the league. When you have things of those nature brought up, yeah, you don't find out until people want you to find out. So yeah, no update there, but yeah, I'm fully confident that there's going to be more moves announced by the club, and yeah, excited for 2026, Jose. I think this is a good way to go ahead and end your 2025 season on the show before go ahead and take a reset, a quick reset, because 2026 is going to be here before we know it. I know you have a whole bunch of traveling for work coming up in January, so I don't know how you're going to do it, but somehow you do it, Jose.
I'm intrigued to find out what country I need to plug into my VPN to watch the preseason, the way I had to pay for a dumb subscription for one match to watch them out in Spain while I was out in Seattle. So we'll see, man. I don't know. I'm curious to see how quickly they get things done, but I'm sure that here the next couple of weeks, and maybe, who knows, Todd, maybe there is an emergency pod where I jump on for 15, 20 minutes to just chime in and chime out.
Is that a Panic at the Disco reference?
What's that?
Is that a Panic at the Disco reference?
Maybe, just maybe. I think it's been a good year. I think it's been an interesting year for a lot of things. And I'm just I think we all just need a little break here. from all of this Union stuff. It's going to happen quick. It's going to happen very, very quick. But January 17th is right around the corner. Or even before that, I'm sure they'll get together to do some running about before they go out to Spain. So, yes, that is a great question. I'm just looking up. Yeah, I believe that you pronounce his name Janier Martinez.
Javier Martinez. I can't use the accent quite as well as Jose, but to Valerie's question, asking how do we say our new Martinez's first name, Jose? That's what she said on the chat. Again, you guys are missing out on all this on the live stream. For the people that don't listen live, that just want to listen to the RSS feed, which is totally fine. But yeah, we enjoy the interactions on the live stream and seeing the people that watch and maybe not comment, but yeah, you guys got to get more involved on the live stream, people that just listen on the RSS feed. But Jose, as always, where can people go ahead and follow you on social media?
At Jose R. Nunes 91. excited for 2026 to get here, man. It's kind of scary how quickly it's come about, but flipping the league year for one of the last times on January 1st before the big switch coming up here in a little bit. So enjoy it while it's still easy to remember how the league works, because it's going to get a little more complicated once it goes into the new format.
I think they should take that shortened season back to Disney and have a MLS is back 2.0. It would be awesome. I mean, I feel like it would be a little bit difficult now because there's no way that Disney shuts down and says, all right, we'll just keep this as a home base for MLS. I mean, you would never get something like MLS is back again, or at least not in Disney World. Maybe you can do it someplace else, but I would love to see them say, we're going to go ahead and take this tournament. We're going to do these 14 games in just one city, and we'll go ahead and I love that, Jose, just pushing back to Hoagie. But let's go.
She called me out for not shaving and having long hair. Like, Jesus,
she said,
goodness.
I don't know what it is with her, dude. She's been coming at you, I feel like, the last couple of shows.
It's all right. I listen, I'm non-persona grata in a lot of places, and this might be one of them, Todd.
Apparently now, I crazy. Not to me, though. I mean, maybe to some of the listeners, maybe. Not to me, Jose. Always welcome. Always a better time when Jose Martinez is. Yes, when Jose Martinez is in the room, but also Jose Nunez is in the room. But yeah, let's go ahead and do that 14-game mini season in an isolated place again, and then we come back with a bang for the 2027-2028 season. But yeah, if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow @FreeKickPod. Go ahead and check out the podcast wherever you get them. The Free Kick. Check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/FreeKickPod. Live every single podcast. This week, a couple days, maybe tomorrow, I'll have my top 10 saves video out of the 2025 season. Let's see who gets number 1 save. And then the following week, I'll go ahead and try to get the top 10 goals video out. But super excited to get those 2 videos out for you guys. And a lot to remember positively about of the 2025 season for the Philadelphia Union. And hopefully 2026 is even better. And speaking of that, Jose and I are trying to get some guests. I do say guests brought onto the podcast that I think would excite quite a few people. We'll see exactly how that goes, but that's all I'll say on that regards. Hopefully, Jose put a goal out of hopefully batting 400, which I think if you bat 400, Jose, that gets you into the Hall of Fame automatically. I mean, that is a phenomenal batting average. So, yeah, I think it's very ambitious, but I think it's very doable, Jose, for what we have planned. So it's going to be quick, but I think we can get close to that goal that you have of 400. So that's all I'll say. Looking forward to Christmas in a couple days, then New Year's next year, and then here we are talking hopefully lots of new signings for 2026 in the Philadelphia Union. But with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.